There's a picture of David Reese up here, because I forgot that I was supposed to probably start with a blank page. I've been working on, David Reese is going to be talking tomorrow, and I'm the executive producer of his podcast, Election Profit Makers, which is what I've been doing I've been executive producing every second of this festival until now. And I like this picture because he tapes a lot of it in my apartment, and we made a mic stand out of a hanger, which I feel like is very Portland. And I feel like as soon as this hits the internet, I'm gonna I walked by and saw typewriter table today. I feel like this is gonna be in the stores immediately as soon as I leave this stage. Okay, so I've been working on his podcast this whole weekend, but I also have my own podcast, Mystery Show. And I was trying to think of a visual, they asked me if I wanted to have slides, and I was at first I said no because I just get so stressed out at the idea of the plugging in of the slides, and then I was well, I guess maybe, I was trying to think of something I could show visually, so if you guys have listened to Mystery Show and you've heard the belt buckle episode and you don't follow me on Instagram, then this is that. Have you seen it before? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, so this is a belt buckle. So I have a show where I solve mysteries, and this is one of the mysteries I solved was returning this belt buckle to its rightful owner, Hans Jordy. And I feel I love showing this picture because I feel it's one of the, again, radio a lot of the times, the way you describe something, it's not necessarily better than the real thing, but it doesn't, you're usually disappointed when you've seen the real thing. It's really upsetting to be on the radio and know that fact, because when people meet you, it's not even they think worse or better, they just can't wrap their head around what they're looking at. And so, they can't disguise it or be polite or anything, but I feel this, when I show the belt buckle, it probably doesn't exactly line up with how you imagined it, but I feel it is even more beautiful than perhaps you imagined it. And I didn't know how to import videos onto this, but I have a video of, that toaster, when you pop it down, is the toast that pops up. It's really a great belt buckle. So, I'm looking at it right now, I'm just dazzled right here. So I started making Mystery Show in my apartment. I did not have the high-tech hanger even then. I didn't really even mean to make a show. I had worked for This American Life for a long time, and I had done radio stories, but I didn't actually have a really strong desire to have my own show. Because of This American Life, if you have an idea for a story, you can do it. It's not they're not tyrants about it, you know what I mean? Every time I had an idea that was good, that worked, they would say yes to. So I didn't feel I didn't really feel there wasn't an outlet for my radio stories. And so but then I kind of heard that this was a while ago. So I had the idea that I liked mysteries before I had the idea for wanting a show. And it was more I just kind of wanted to see if I could create a vehicle for me to solve mysteries. Way before, that definitely came before I want to have my own radio show. And it's this really weird thing that happens, because even though I had done radio stories for so long, when I thought of the idea, I definitely didn't think it was going to work. And what I find interesting about the creative process, at least mine, is that it depletes every single time. I go through the same phases every time. We're thinking it's not going to work, it's not going to be good, I suck. It just never, it's just like the bio thing. I cannot believe it doesn't even accelerate. If anything, the stretches get longer and longer. And so it wasn't I was I know how to do radio, I can make a show, this is the next step. It just was it's impossible, it's never going to happen. And I forced myself, and because I was in my apartment, it was really, when you're working in your apartment alone is really when, it is so exhausting how much your brain can tell you things aren't going to work. It is so loud and unrelenting. And so I basically went to go get tape to get away from being inside my apartment, telling me I couldn't do it. I just had to get out of the house. And the first mystery that I thought of was that my friend had rented a video. She'd rented Must Love Dogs from a video store, and she had gone to return it the next day after having her like 24-hour rom-com, viewing cycle completed, and she went to return it, and the video store was closed for business. Like overnight, it had shuttered, and she had signed up and become a member of the video store, and like was all filled out a card and put in her wallet. And she's also the kind of person. It's amazing that we're friends because I'm like everything about her. I'm the opposite of this, but she's the kind of person who actually like notices, like returns movies on time and notices charges on her credit card that aren't supposed. Like I cannot even imagine that feeling, but that's what she is. She's like this alien that I'm friends with, and so, and she, assigned me to the case, and I like went down to where the video store was every day, and I tried to find what happened. And it felt crazy because, like, what the hell was I doing? Like, I was like trying to solve a case, and I felt like such a fraud. And you already feel like a fraud when you're doing stories anyway, but on top of it, I was like a fake detective, and like, and I didn't have like the right gear. I still don't have the right gear, and that also upsets me. Like, I don't know what girl detectives are supposed to wear. Like, I know they're supposed to wear the ones that I don't want to be, but like I want to be, I don't know what the like girl Columbo version is, other than, like the clothing, I think about it so much, other than just like not ironing. I don't know how to get what I need out of this. And so all that was happening, and then also it wasn't like This American Life Story, because This American Life Story is, you know what you're on track, you know what you're looking for. Like you have the idea and you're just like laser focused to it. And the only thing that I knew was I was trying to get to a solution, but I had no idea how to make that happen. And it makes you think about things different ways when you're interviewing people, because when you're doing a This American Life Story or like another kind of story where you know like what you, in those kind of stories, you know what you're trying to hear. You know what the goal is. And what's different about Mystery Show for me is I didn't even know what that was. Like I didn't even know what was something that I was supposed to manipulate to make happen. You know what I mean? I wasn't doing anything except really listening. And so I went downtown, looked for this video store, did not wear the right clothes, I'm sure of that. And I just kept going into like diners and stores and parking garages, and it all felt like so fuzzy and murky, and the whole time I was like, this is ridiculous, it's never gonna work. And then I walked into a bar. Actually, I walked into a hotel that then led me to this bar, and it was this old bar filled with people, and there was a waitress there, and she'd obviously been working there like since the bar had opened, and she told me about a video store that had burned down in a fire. And then she turned to like one of the regulars sitting at the bar. Oh, not that.
Tom, what was the name of the original video store down on Greenwich?
What was the name of it? I was a member.
Remember the old man who worked there with Mr. Two Fingers?
I saw Madonna in there once.
You saw Madonna there once.
I'll think of the name in a second. What was it called? But I was a member. I mean, I've been here 30 years, so. They had good foreign films, which I like,
What's your favorite foreign film?
La Strada. I don't know. It was a very touching film for me because I identify with the character Zampano. I know he was a bad guy, but I thought that love affair with Jessamina, he saw the light, but it was too late. The last scene of him crying on the beach, it was so sad.
Did you relate to that part, like seeing the light too late?
Oh. I put the shell around me and I'm living with it. I put walls in front of me. It's not good, but that's the way I've been.
Do you have kids?
No. I never married. Close a few times, but the last time was probably 20 years ago. 92, yeah. She was a few years older than me and she didn't want to have kids, and my whole point of marriage, why do you get married unless you're going to have kids, So, believe me, I'm lamenting.
Like La Strada.
Yeah, that's true.
It's never too late to knock those walls down.
Yeah. I've seen that film hundreds of times, and I have it on tape.
You watch it a lot?
I might watch it tonight, actually. The hell is the name of that video store?
Okay. So I don't know how out of context, I'm not even sure how it sounds, but like it's a small moment, right? But I'd done so many stories before that, but when I got that tape, it felt really different, because it just felt like not only was I trying to, follow the trail of evidence to get to the solution, but I was really, truly following the story. And I wasn't, you feel weird sometimes when you're, like, I don't know, I get very tired sometimes, like when you're doing interviews and you don't want to, you know what you want to hear and you don't want to like guide it. And it just was like this really nice feeling of being like, we're having a conversation, and because he's talking to me, I now know where the story's going to go. And I didn't know when I left the house today that was going to happen. And it was it felt real, and it felt like interesting, and I felt really awake when listening to him, and I think that's a terrible word that I'm going to regret saying as soon as I watch this later on, but I feel like, it felt really different, and in that moment, as soon as I talked to him, I was like, I can do this show, like this is a show that I'm interested in, and I want to keep doing it, and I feel like everything that I've ever done, anytime I try to do something that I'm not interested in, it just falls apart, I can't muster enthusiasm, but when I do get excited, then I'm able to just like completely throw myself into it, and it's really hard, you can't manufacture those situations, you don't know when they're going to happen, but I do feel like it's really important that when they do happen, you don't, you respect them, because you can't predict it. And so I went home and I kind of like anchored the episode with that piece of tape, and I finished the episode and I recorded voice tracks in my bedroom and put it all together, and I had an episode that I liked at the end, and I was really proud of it, and it felt really different to me. And then I waited 4 years for Serial to come out, basically, and people to care about podcasts. Because like what happened was, like it was just like a thing that I was really excited about that literally lived on my computer. And I'm pretty sure, like, not just one computer, like computers died and it had to get transferred over, and I do not back things up, and like there were so many times, it came so close to not existing just from my being like, there's just no way to, you can't like transfer files, like it's impossible. And so like, it's just, I had like a computer that was like so broken and had like the letters were taped onto it with this like big thick tape that had pictures of panda bears on it, like tumbling, it was so rickety. And that's where the show was. And then I was really about to give up. And then I guess people just love true crime. And so then podcasts like took off. And so the first year that Mystery Show came out, so then at the end of that year, this happened, and it was suddenly like Mr. Robot and podcasts were in the same chart. And I had thought that, hold on. I had thought that I had thought this would be the weirdest thing that happened for me doing Mystery Show. I did an episode where my friend saw a picture of her with Britney Spears holding her book that no one had ever read, and she wanted me to get to the bottom of it, and it ended up with me going to a meet and greet with Britney Spears, and this happening. And I thought this was going to be like the weirdest picture, but because podcast blew up so much, this was the weirdest picture that I have now for Mystery Show. So you have no idea how surreal that felt. I was on Conan O'Brien. This happened. Simpsons did a shout out to Mystery Show. This is another episode about a knotted jean jacket. That right up there, this jean jacket that you can barely make out. I'm not just making it up. I'm not just like thinking I'm so excited, I'm so famous. They really did reference Mystery Show. It's a real reference. It was crazy. It was very, very, very weird. And so what happened was, what I hadn't anticipated Mystery Show getting that big. you do a weird thing. I feel like when I was in my apartment making a mystery show, I was thinking about this. Like, I wasn't like I didn't think anybody was gonna hear it, because I don't think I don't know how to keep a journal, and I can only clean my house if someone's coming over. Like I know that I want an audience, like I crave an audience. I'm really grateful you guys are here. But you also have to kind of trick yourself into you have to care about the audience, but not do it for the audience, because then you get really messed up in the head. You have to have this balance. And so mystery show came out, I had finished 3 of the episodes before we first launched it, and then we were working on 3 of them when it came out. And it was this really weird thing where you're suddenly like out there and exposed, and people are tweeting at you and telling you they like it, and you're still trying to work on the thing while you know people are enjoying it, and you're trying to like block them out at the same time. And because the internet exists now, like there'd be episodes where I was like trying to get them up, and there'd be people just like writing to me being like, it's okay, you can do it, get some sleep, it's okay, just make sure you're eating well. Like it was so bizarre. And then and there's also, and now podcasts also have advertisers, and so like then the advertisers want them to come out, and you just keep I wanted to show the advertisers the tweets and be like, no, sleep's really important to the people, it's more than the ads, and like, it is so strange. And then Mystery Show went on, so then the first season ended, and then there's this really weird feeling where you're like, I keep saying, so it feels really weird because you think you shouldn't do anything that doesn't involve what you're making. That's like the strangest part of being identified, I think, with something that you make, is like everything else feels like cheating. Like not just anything, like definitely when I tweet about the Game of Thrones, I'm so full of shame, and I feel like and I also so need to talk about it with someone, so it's just like big, I can't resist, but I feel anything I publicly put out there feels really weird, but also even just kind of when you're being a person feels a little stranger, because you don't quite understand, like there's a person that you are when you're making something and you fall into this zone, and then there's a person you are when you're just like being living your life, and it's a really strange combo, I feel, to navigate. And the more success you have with something and the more that you are consumed by that thing, I think it gets harder to kind of figure out the off hours of your life. And then on top of it, there's also stuff like, these are just the tweets I've gotten since I've been here. But for real, Starlee, when's Mystery Show coming back? Where's the mystery show? These mysteries are not going to solve themselves. Am I supposed to be blocking out these people's names? Sorry, people, if you're watching. This one I got this morning. Can you guys read this? That's a GIF of him begging. And so it's a very strange thing. I feel like it's a very, very strange feeling to have, where you're like, I feel like it's like when you want the movie to kind of end and the credits roll, and that's kind of what you expect, but instead you like go on and do all your errands, and you also have to think about, it's so strange also, like you're always sorting your thoughts in your head, like which is the thought that goes into that sentence that entertains the masses, and which is the thought that's like a regular thought that I just keep for myself. Like I feel like it just gets incredibly, incredibly confusing, and which is why I do stuff like produce other things, because I feel you also have to, in order to get not lost in kind of the muck of it, you also have to be you still have to be following that trail that goes on. And just like in the show where it's just like about, it's in the show I'm literally following my curiosity, but I think in real life I have to do that too. And I think everyone I've ever met who makes something, that is the trail that they follow. And I think it's a very important thing to remember as we all try to navigate this strange, confusing, new world that I think we've all been thrown into. So that's really what I mainly want to say, is just like, kind of like, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be teaching you guys stuff. I don't even know if there's supposed to be a lesson in this, but I feel that my big lesson, and I try to remember too, is just to like, if it makes me feel interested and excited and not very, very tired, that's an important thing, and that's how ultimately the bigger work will happen. And the last picture I wanted to show you was, Oh yeah, that. So I made a T-shirt that is, the Mystery Show T-shirt has a Jake Gyllenhaal height chart on the back, because in case you see him, which everyone sees him but me, you can measure him, and every height is the same height, which is his height, so you can, no matter how tall you are, it'll always be his height. But when I was on Conan and he was there, this is him holding his height chart, which I felt like was like a Black Mirror episode. Like it was just too much for me to handle. And so that's like my parting image. Okay, thank you.